Hi there YouTube friends, Kalos Orisate, and welcome back to Mom's Greek Kitchen, the channel where I teach you my mom's Greek recipes in her memory. Today we're making Tiropitakia. Tiropitakia are an appetizer, phyllo filled with a cheese filling and baked until nice and crispy. They're a wonderful little appetizer, great hot, warm, or even room temperature, although they're not as crispy when they're at room temperature. Alright, so come into the kitchen and let's make them together. Alright, and we're ready to start the filling for our spanakopitakia. So I've got my big box grater side here, and I've got a large onion, and we're just going to, we've peeled it and we're now going to just grate it. Alright, so now we have our grated onion, and we're going to salt it lightly, and we're going to let it sit for about 5, 10, 15 minutes, and the salt will draw out the extra moisture out of the onion, and then we will squeeze it so we can get as much of the liquid out so our filling isn't really runny. So maybe half a teaspoon of salt. Mix it up, and we'll set it to the side. Now, while our box grater is already dirty, we're going to grate our feta. So here I have about a pound, 400 grams was the container size. You want a nice flavorful sharp feta. Doesn't matter if it's the crumbly or the smoother kind, either works well, as long as it's not way too salty. So taste it and see, you can adjust a little bit. We don't actually add salt, but if it's too salty you can soak it overnight in water, so some of that water will, some of that salt will leach out. It's actually a very simple filling. It's only got basically 3 main ingredients, 4 I guess if you count the eggs, but it's very tasty, and goes really well. They go really well together, the onion and the cheese and the eggs and stuff. You could crumble it between your hands, but then you can get some large pieces, so grating is a little preferable. And there we are. Oops, made a mess. And our cheese is ready to go. Add the crumbs that I dropped. Alright, I'll be back when the onions are ready to go to the next. Alright, so we're back. It's been about 15 minutes. And I've got our onion here, and as you can see it's pretty soupy. So we're just going to put it through a strainer. And we're just going to squeeze it and have the water pass through our strainer and leave the onion behind. You can squeeze it between your hands, but it's a very mushy mixture, so you will lose some of it. You can also do it in a cloth, but again, being such a fine paste, it sticks pretty well. We just don't want all that liquid into our filling, which will make it very difficult to form our little triangles. Alright, that's pretty good, I think. So as you can see, it's a nice mass now, and there's the amount of water that's come out of that. That would have made a really sloppy filling. So here's my grated feta. I'm going to add the onion to it. Now our next ingredient is either cottage cheese or ricotta. I'm using cottage cheese. That's what Mom always used for the most part. Ricotta is usually more expensive, and in this preparation you wouldn't know the difference. But if you make your own, ricotta might be easier. So that was about a cup. And then quite a bit of black pepper. So I'm going to give this a good mix. Okay, and now I'm going to add our eggs. And I usually mix it up before I add the eggs, because once the eggs are in, it's a little harder to get a nice even mixture. I would start out with 2, and if I need to, I'll add a third. I think 2 eggs is going to be enough for this batch. You want it to slump a little bit when you let it go, but you don't want it like too soupy, because you are going to wrap it in phyllo again, and if it's too soupy it'll just ooze out the sides while you're doing your work. So I'm going to call that done. So I'll give you a look at the sort of the texture you want. It moves a little bit when you drop it off your spatula. It doesn't stick onto your spatula. It doesn't run off immediately. Alright, so set that aside and we'll be back with the phyllo. Next stage. Alright, now we're ready to start working with our phyllo. So phyllo comes in a package like this usually. This is a pound. Exactly 454 grams. Try and find one that is the finer or the thinnest phyllo. Some of them are quite thick and you don't get as many sheets of phyllo in your package of a pound, which means you get less of your little appetizers or main course depending on how big you make them. Just open up the package. Slides out. It's wrapped in parchment or wax paper, and there is a trick. Usually you can see that there's sort of 2 levels here, and this is, if you pick up this group and or you pull this side here, it should separate, which means you get right to the middle of your phyllo and you don't have any foldovers that you have to deal with. You don't have to go searching for the center or the topmost sheet. Take out the wax paper, but keep it nearby, because we're going to use it to cover our phyllo as if we need to take a break from rolling or whatever. Now you can make any size you really want with your appetizers or main course. I wouldn't do the Tiropitakia for a main course really. It's quite rich and heavy, but if you're doing spinach pies, you would do either half sheets or full sheets depending on how big a Tiropitakia or spanakopita you want. But we're going to be making appetizers, and Mom used to cut them into 7 strips. I tend to do 6. I like them a little bigger, but if you're doing like a finger food and more of a single bite versus a 2-bite appetizer, I would cut them into 7. but 6 is easier to do. So that's what I'm going to show you. So I took the top sheet and I folded it in half, and I'm going to use it as a guide to cut my sheets. Go straight down. If you run your knife along the phyllo, you have a chance of dragging it and ripping it. Take off the one that's folded. Stack the two halves now. Be gentle, but you don't have to be too delicate with it. It's not that fragile. Now take that piece that you had doubled and fold the edge to the center, and then the other side to the center, and now you've got a strip that is a third, or a sixth I should say, width. And so align it with one edge of the stack and cut through all of them. Take your time, but cut firmly through. Take your top piece again, your folded piece, move it over. This wasn't quite square, but that'll do. And then again, cut straight down. Take off your folded piece. Stack the strips, and I see I had some that weren't full pieces on the end. That's all right, we will use those, don't throw them away. Stack your strips, and then we'll use these later. This piece that was folded, unfold the two that are not, like this is on the fold, this is not, so cut that down. That's two more. And then open up your double. Cut down the crease. There's two more. And finally, open this one up. And cut down the crease again. Alright, we have our strips cut. So we're ready to start filling. I'm going to clean up the decks here. Alright, I've got my workstation set up. So I'm going to go over it with you so you know what I'm doing here. Here I have my filling ready to go. And I've got a tablespoon or a teaspoon in it, depending on, again, what size appetizer you're making and or how comfortable you are with folding. I've got a pound of butter that I've melted over the stove, low heat, just to melt it, that's all you need to do, and a pastry brush. I do not recommend the silicone brushes. They are too rough on your phyllo and they tend to rip. So I'm going to use a cheapo 2-inch brush with natural bristles. I've got that sitting on a trivet. I've got a baking sheet that where I will put my finished Tiropitakia. And I've got my phyllo here. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to dip our brush and we're going to rub it on our counter. Yes, I know it's weird, but there's a method to my madness. So we're going to take one sheet of phyllo, we're going to put it onto our buttered counter, and what it basically does is it keeps this from moving. So then we're going to dip our brush again, we're going to put our finger on the tip and we're going to work away from us. That way our phyllo stays nice and straight, it doesn't bunch up. Now take a second phyllo, line it up as well as best as you can. Same idea. Now, those broken ones that we had earlier, they are quite usable. Just do not use them as the first layer, because that's the one that's going to be on the outside, and that's the one that needs to have some integrity to hold it all together. There seems to be two here, so I think you are my other little piece. And that's our third sheet. So it's 3 strips for each Tiropitaki, or Spanakopitaki if you were doing the Spanakopita version, which is on my channel. So when I showed you the spinach triangles earlier, we did isosceles triangles. So two of the angles were long, or sorry, two angles were the same length, and then one long end at the bottom. So two of them together make a square. To distinguish them, because I normally serve them both at the same time, the Tiropitakia I turn into equilateral triangles. So the folding technique is a little different. It's still the folding technique, it's just that the way you start it. So I'm going to take about a heaping tablespoon, or a level tablespoon. Now, for the equilateral, we made a right angle triangle. For the isosceles, that back where it belongs, we're going to take the corner, either left or right, depending on if you're right or left-handed, and we're going to make it go to the center of our phyllo, pointing up the center. Hope you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. Adjust my camera. So as you can see, so that's my corner there. I take my corner and I put it so it's pointing straight up. Now we're going to worry about the corner that's furthest away from us. So in this case, it's this one. And I'm going to take it, oops, I got a split here, and align this edge with that point. So this is my next point that I have to worry about, the one furthest away from me. So I'm going to flip it so I have a straight edge there, and there, and there, and there, and there, until we get that. Oops, that. Alright. Now, one thing I forgot to do, we need to brush our pan with butter all over, a nice coating of it. Or you can line it with parchment, or saran wrap, plastic wrap, or wax paper, anything of that sort, but butter seems to work well. Then we're going to put our filled Tiropitakia right there on the edge. We're going to brush it with butter once it's on the pan, and we're ready to start the next one. The next one will go right, it'll go I'll show you as we go. It's a little close work with this camera here, so a little difficult to show you everything. So we do again. So we've got our first sheet of phyllo. We're going to brush away from us. I'm going to use those shreds. I'm going to put them in the middle this time. Oops. And one more. Oops, helps if I butter that one. The shreds you sort of have to pat down because they will rip or bunch up if you try and do the full brushing thing. But if it's a full sheet, it's just easy enough to do that. Again, we're going to put on about that much. I don't know if the camera will pick up how much that is. A good lead dollop on the end here. And again, we're going to grab a corner. We're going to point the corner straight up the middle. We're going to worry about this corner here. We're going to take this line and align it here. So this straight edge lines up against this straight edge. Okay? Make that point nice and sharp by adjusting your angle here. Now again, we're going to go here. This straight edge is going to line up against that straight edge. Okay? And we continue again. So this corner, this straight edge to this side. I'm going to move it down so you can see again. This straight edge to this straight edge. One more. And the last one. The last one is always going to be sort of a half on the bottom. We're going to put it next to the other one on our pan. We're going to brush it with butter. And we're going to go on to the next one. So you get them nice and close, but not touching because you don't want them to freeze together. but you do want them close so you have as much room to get as many of these onto your tray as you can. Alright, I'm going to show you one more and then I will go off camera and I will finish them off and I'll be back when they're all done. So one more time, just so you get that fold down. Our first piece. I also suggest you don't leave your brush sitting in the butter. Just put it on the edge. I usually put it across the handle like this, and that way it's not a soppy mess. And a third. If you forget, just split them up at the bottom and count how many phyllos you've got. I do that on occasion if I'm talking or whatever. It's like, did I put down 2 or 3? Again, so let's see. Yeah, we're in camera here. So we're going to grab our corner. We're going to go so the point is straight up the middle. This straight edge to this straight edge. And this straight edge to this straight edge. Follow the corner that's furthest away from you. Just keep going. I'll put it close so you can see. Last 2 and done. Alright, so that's our Tiropitakia. Put it on the pan, brush it with butter, and keep going. Alright, I'm back. I finished folding my Tiropitakia, my cheese triangles. I got exactly 36, so 3 dozen of this size, and that's cutting the phyllo into 6 strips across, and there's 3 for each one. I didn't have any waste this time, which is awesome, and I actually used I had to use just a little crumbled more feta cheese to what was left of my filling to make that last one. Otherwise it works out pretty much exactly even for filling and the phyllo. We're back. So here are our Tiropitakia out of the oven. This is the color you'd like them at. It was about 25 minutes at 375, but every oven is different, so please see how yours bakes. If you're using a fan oven, of course it will be a little bit less than that. As you can hear, hopefully, nice and crispy. I'm going to cut one open. So there you can see our layers of flaky phyllo and our filling, which with the egg and stuff becomes a nice mass. This is probably too hot to eat. No, maybe not. Hot. Buttery, cheesy, nice crispy flaky phyllo. It's a great appetizer. It does need a napkin or a plate under it because you'll get shreds of phyllo everywhere, but other than that, small price to pay because these are great. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let your friends know about the channel, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.